What if the reason you feel stuck is because you're trying too hard to improve? Not because you're lazy, not because you lack discipline, but because the way you've been taught to work on yourself is quietly exhausting you. Self-improvement sounds noble, productive, responsible. But for a lot of people, it has turned into a never-ending project of fixing, upgrading, optimizing, and correcting everything about who they are. Wake up earlier, work harder, think more positively, be more confident, be more disciplined, be more successful. And somehow, even after all that effort, you still feel like you're behind. So let's unpack what's actually happening. At its core, the desire to improve is healthy. Humans are wired for growth. We like progress. We like momentum. Psychologists even describe self-actualization as one of our highest drives, the desire to become who we're capable of becoming. The problem isn't growth. The problem is when growth turns into self-rejection. A lot of modern self-improvement messaging carries a subtle assumption: you are not enough as you are. And when that belief sits quietly in the background, everything changes. You don't go to the gym because you respect your body. You go because you dislike it. You don't chase goals because you're inspired. You chase them because you feel inadequate. You don't build discipline because you value structure. You build it because you're afraid of being average. That shift matters because psychologically, motivation driven by shame activates stress. You're operating from threat mode. And while fear can push you in short bursts, it cannot sustain you long term. That's why so many people go through intense cycles. A hyper-productive week, a perfect routine, total focus, then burnout, then guilt, then restart. It's not a discipline problem, it's an emotional one. Underneath the obsession with improvement is often insecurity fueled by comparison. Your brain is constantly scanning your environment for where you stand. Social media makes that worse. You're comparing your unfiltered, messy reality to someone else's curated highlights. Your brain doesn't know the difference. Over time, this builds what psychologists call a deficit focus. Instead of noticing what's working, your attention locks onto what's missing. And what you repeatedly focus on feels bigger. If you constantly search for flaws in yourself, you will find them. This is where awareness becomes more powerful than criticism. Criticism says, I'm not good enough. Awareness says, this is where I am right now. Criticism is harsh and emotional. Awareness is calm and observational. Instead of saying, I'm lazy, awareness sounds like, I tend to procrastinate when I feel overwhelmed. That subtle change removes shame and replaces it with information, and information is usable. Research on self-compassion shows something interesting. People who treat themselves with understanding after mistakes are actually more likely to improve, because they aren't wasting energy defending themselves from their own self-attack. Self-compassion isn't self-indulgence, it's emotional stability. Now let's talk about identity. Most people try to change behavior without changing how they see themselves. They say, I want to work out more, but internally they still identify as someone who isn't consistent. They say, I want to be confident, but they still see themselves as the shy one. Your actions tend to align with your identity, so real self-improvement starts there. Instead of I'm trying to write, think, I'm becoming someone who writes regularly. Instead of I need more discipline, think, I'm learning to keep promises to myself. Identity shifts don't happen through intensity. They happen through repetition. Each small action is evidence. Each time you follow through on something minor, your brain updates its model of who you are. You don't need dramatic transformation, you need consistent proof. There's another uncomfortable truth here. Sometimes self-improvement becomes avoidance. You stay busy optimizing your routine so you don't have to sit with uncomfortable feelings. You chase achievement because slowing down feels unsafe. You stack goals because silence makes you anxious. Busyness can numb. But growth isn't always about adding more. Sometimes it's about subtracting. Subtracting unrealistic expectations. Subtracting goals that aren't even yours. Subtracting the constant comparison. Ask yourself, who are these goals for? If they're built around external validation, you'll never feel finished. But if your goals are built around alignment, around your values, the process feels grounded. This is the difference between extrinsic and intrinsic motivation. Extrinsic motivation comes from rewards, recognition, status. Intrinsic motivation comes from meaning, curiosity, and personal satisfaction. Research consistently shows that intrinsic motivation leads to greater persistence and fulfillment. If you hate the process but love the image of the result, burnout is inevitable. But if the effort itself feels meaningful, you can sustain it. Now let's redefine discipline. Discipline is often portrayed as extreme toughness. No excuses. Push through everything. But you are not a machine. You are a nervous system. When you're exhausted or emotionally drained, your capacity for self-control drops. That's not weakness, that's biology. Instead of building discipline through force, build it through design. Make habits smaller, reduce friction, lower the starting point. Want to read more? Start with 5 pages. Want to work out? Start with 10 minutes. Want to build focus? Remove one distraction instead of all of them. Small actions reduce resistance. Reduced resistance increases consistency. Consistency builds identity, and identity sustains change. You also don't need to improve every area of your life at once. Focus on one area at a time. Let it stabilize, then expand. Growth is not a constant upward climb, it's cyclical. There are seasons of effort and seasons of consolidation. Rest is not stagnation, rest is integration. If you zoom out, self-improvement isn't about becoming someone else. It's about removing what blocks you from being more fully yourself. Less shame, less comparison, less noise, more clarity, more alignment, more intentional action. You are allowed to grow without hating who you are today. You can build better habits without labeling yourself as broken. You can pursue more without believing you are less. Real self-improvement isn't a war against yourself. It's a partnership. And when growth starts coming from respect instead of fear, it stops feeling like punishment. It starts feeling like freedom.